Order. We now come to question number 2 in the name of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his reported statement on the proposed council-controlled organisations for the new Auckland Supercity, quote, "We like the structure," unquote? If so, why?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, because the changes in Auckland, to the Auckland Supercity, will improve the coordination and delivery of services to ratepayers and accountability. I'm a bit surprised the member seems surprised about CCOs. Auckland City has had 40 CCOs, and these CCOs are being set up in the similar structure to those which were in place during the whole time that member was in the government.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Why does the Prime Minister support a structure that Aucklanders right across the political spectrum have condemned as removing democratic control and accountability from agencies that will be spending 75% of the Auckland Council and the ratepayers' money?
The Honourable Bill English.
Speaker, many of those who have expressed an opinion, of course, have run councils with CCOs. All those 40 CCOs have been overseen by existing Auckland councils, and they have their opportunity to present their views to the Select Committee, which is fine-tuning the third Auckland Governance Bill, and we await their report.
Supplementary question, Mr.
The Honourable
Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
Why has he allowed the introduction of legislation setting up the Auckland Transport Agency when all 4 key government departments in the Cabinet paper advised him against this because it would mean a lack of proper accountability to the Auckland City Council and the ratepayers of Auckland, whose money it will be spending?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member may know that the changes in Auckland are going to take currently, I think, 9 transport organisations and turn them into one. And he will be familiar with the operations of ARTA, which currently exists under the current structure with appointed directors and its own statements of intent and full public accountability. The member has to explain why 40 CCOs were right in the past and a smaller number of them is now wrong.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order. Order. There's a point of order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table a Cabinet Committee paper where it sets out that the 4 government agencies that are involved in this process, including the Treasury, the Department of Internal Affairs, the Ministry for the Environment and the Ministry for Economic Development, all oppose the model that this government has imposed on Auckland.
Leave us forward for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, why are the agencies being called council-controlled organisations when the Auckland Transport Agency, for example, is not explicitly required in legislation to act in accordance with the requirements of its shareholders, the Auckland City Council? The Auckland City Council has no power to appoint its chair or its deputy chair, and the council is not empowered to change the structure or disestablish it. Isn't that an oxymoron?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, if that member was worried about the structure of CCOs, he had 9 long years in government to fix it, and he never did.
Point of order. Point of order. Order. There's a point of order. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, it's a very clear point of order, and the precedents have been set even in recent days by Mr. Speaker around starting replies to reasonable questions in a way which are attacking the opposition and not addressing the question.
Thank you for that. That is a fair comment, and I'd ask the Minister to come back and not to bring those sort of innuendos into the answers. The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the current structure of the new CCOs is very similar to that which existed on the 40 CCOs that were in place during the term of the last government. Of course, we have the opportunity to fine-tune the structure through the third bill that's going through the Select Committee, but in essence these entities are controlled totally by the councils.
Question, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, why are the so-called council-controlled organisations able to hold their meetings in private? Why are they not required to set out publicly what is in their agenda or to publish their minutes, thus removing transparency and accountability to the ratepayers of Auckland they're meant to be serving?
The Honourable Bill English.
Those requirements are exactly the same as the requirements that apply to the current 40 CCOs in Auckland and the CCO structures that operated by councils all around the country. And I'm a bit puzzled that the opposition has now found out how CCOs work and didn't seem at all concerned about it when it was using its own influence in government to put Labor people on CCOs to get what it wanted.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what is the Prime Minister's response to the Chair of Local Government New Zealand, Mayor Lawrence Yule, when he says, firstly, that there's a groundswell of opposition across Auckland to his government's legislation? Secondly, that democracy is fundamentally threatened, his words, fundamentally threatened by the changes. And thirdly, that with control of 3/4 of Auckland's assets being handed over to a few non-elected directors, Auckland ratepayers are deprived of accountability and transparency.
The Honourable Bill English.
I think where we agree is that the previous structure of 40 CCOs, where almost all of Auckland's assets were in the hands of a fragmented structure across 8 councils, that didn't work very well. And even Auckland wants that changed. This is part of the process of change. And in every case, the council is free to appoint or dismiss any member of those CCOs, as has been the case for the last 15 or 20 years with council-controlled organisations all around the country.
Point of order, the Honourable.
And again, a relatively simple one. The question started with and was all about what is the Prime Minister's response to Mr Yule. Mr Yule was not mentioned, and there was no response to the 3 points that were made by Mr Yule.
Thank you. Well, I considered there was, but I must remind ministers when they're replying on behalf of someone else, they must say they are replying on behalf of the Prime Minister, instead of just coming into the answer. Are there any further questions? Point of order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I seek the leave of the House to table a letter dated the 12th of March 2010 to mayors right across New Zealand by Lawrence Yule, the President of Local Government New Zealand, setting out all of those fundamental criticisms I outlined in the question and which the Minister didn't answer.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Supplementary question, Speaker.
Supplementary question. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, will he respond to the growing mood in Auckland articulated by its community leaders of all political shades and by the newspapers in Auckland that Rodney Hyde is not fit to guide these reforms of Auckland local governance? And will he act on their lack of confidence in him as Minister of Local Government by dismissing him? If not, why not?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime.
Absolutely not, Mr Speaker. The Minister of Local Government has overseen one of the largest, most complex changes in public policy in New Zealand. And the thrust of those changes is broadly supported in Auckland and widely supported through the rest of the country. And I would challenge that member to show any other such large